Hi, my name is Kristen Pisani. I am a graduate student at the University of Georgia pursuing my master's in ruminant nutrition, ruminant microbiology, and a little bit of meat science. And today I'm going to be talking about some common product labeling on animal products like meat and poultry specifically is what I'm going to be talking about. So let's get started. Last week's video, I posted a poll on Facebook asking about organic, and I got really good feedback on that. So I thought I'd post one more time. And I first asked my Facebook friends what they thought of when they heard the word natural and what they thought they were paying for. And again, with free range. So you see here, this person said no growth hormones or chemically induced growth. They're not inducing hens to lay more eggs or cows to produce more milk. So RBST, which isn't super popular. And then for free range, the animals are not kept in cages and are not fed, I guess, a more high energy feed, she's saying, because plump, leaner. So those are just some things to think about. I typically get into, a lot of debates with people about these things. Growth hormones, free range, natural. So I thought today's video would be a really good opportunity for us to kind of break down some of these things that we think about and from the producer end, what they actually mean. So to start off, natural. Typically when you hear natural and when consumers hear natural, they think about the way that the animal is raised. So out in a pasture, eating grass, in the sun, when in actuality, natural actually only refers to the product. So once that animal is killed and is now a carcass and produces a meat product, natural refers to how that meat product is handled. So according to the USDA, to have the label as natural, a meat product must have no artificial ingredients or added color. This also goes for eggs. And the meat must be minimally processed. This means that it does not fundamentally alter the product. So it's just a straight cut from the animal. Whereas you think of, like, in that top corner, I put a picture of chicken nuggets. Chicken nuggets, not from all companies, but a lot of the times are more highly processed. You've heard of mechanically separated chicken, or you might know it as pink slime. I want to reiterate that it is called mechanically separated chicken, not pink slime. Mechanically separated chicken, essentially what it is imagine you get a rotisserie chicken from the grocery store and you take, you cut what you want off of it. You cut the breasts off, you cut the thighs off. You're left with a lot of meat still on those bones. So mechanically separated chicken is basically, it goes through a machine with a bunch of little knives that just cut that excess meat off the bones. The pink slime debate is a little bit of a different process where they just use enzymes to take it off of the bones. Regardless, it's still just using the leftover meat that's left on the bones after we take the major cuts of meat off of the animal. And this goes for chicken, and they do it with beef as well and pork. But chicken is what we typically think of. But natural, that natural labeling is not to be confused with naturally raised. Naturally raised is a new label that came out in 2009, which does refer to how the animal was raised clearly. To be naturally raised, the animals have to have been grown with no growth promotants, no antibiotics, and no animal byproducts. For those of you who may be listening to this that aren't in agriculture, by animal byproducts, typically chicken litter, which is chicken urine and feces, is really high in nitrogen, and we can actually feed that to cattle as a nitrogen source. So it's sustainable. It's using the things, we feed the chickens corn, the nitrogen, phosphorus goes in the ground. Now we can take that and feed it to cattle. It's just a way of recycling nutrients, and cattle actually can use a lot of that nitrogen and grow from it. So it's a really good resource just for reusing some byproducts. And just to be clear, there are no standards or regulations on the word natural when a product does not contain any meat or eggs. So if you go to a grocery store and grab a bag of potato chips, there's nothing, if they say natural, there's nothing or no one that regulates that and makes sure that they truly are natural. So that's just something to think about the next time you go to the grocery store. The next thing I get asked a lot about is free range. Free range and free roaming only applies to poultry. So if you see like free range beef, I don't know what that even would be. This has to do only with poultry, and it means that they must be allowed access to the outdoors. So if you see in this picture here on the left, there's like those small openings and those animals can go outside. Take note of how many chickens still choose to be inside, although they are given the access to outside. Um, we don't use bird brain lightly. I mean, chickens are not all that smart. They like to clump together and stay in a group. So if a group of them, I mean, you can see that there's this big space here where the camera is. There could be chickens there, but they choose to kind of clump together. But to be allowed access to outdoors, I mean, they are allowed to either have that little door to outside open all day for an hour, for 30 minutes. They just need to be given some access to outdoors. It's really a broad term that the USDA doesn't go into specific detail about. Now I just want to talk about some reasons that we actually keep them indoors. The first of that being predators. I mean, there is a poultry farm up in North Georgia that gets actually some money from the government because they have some free-range chickens that some wild eagles have decided to prey upon. So now they are conservationists because they're feeding wild eagles, and they also have bird watchers that pay to come by and look for the wild eagles. So that's some new marketing for you. But predators, that's one reason that we keep our animals indoors. Another, I'd say even bigger reason is disease. When they're outside, you don't know who or what they're coming into contact with. Bird flu, have you ever heard of it? We don't want that in our food supply, and having chickens that are outdoors and can come into contact with a wild bird can really increase our chances of having bird flu come about in our poultry herds. And lastly, product quality. Having chickens that walk around a lot actually increases some tendons in their body, and it actually makes them less tender. So it makes for a rough product that's kind of chewy, and that's not what our consumers want to buy. So we typically keep them indoors just to make them more palatable for you guys. And just one last thing. Poultry that are grown for meat, which are broilers if we're talking about chickens, are never kept in cages. They are kept in a house just like this. Cage-free only refers to layer hens, which lay eggs. So if you ever try to buy a pack of meat that says cage-free, just know they're just charging you for the extra ink on the package. And this is kind of where I'll get up on my soapbox a little. No hormones or antibiotics. I've gotten into 1,000,001 debates with people about this. Thanks, Oprah, for making everyone afraid of chicken. It's pretty self-explanatory. For them to have this label, producers must show documentation that no hormones or antibiotics were ever given to the animals. However, this is a little bit of a wool over the eyes to consumers. In pork and poultry production, hormones are never allowed to be used, which is why you'll see in really small writing that you can barely read, federal regulations prohibit the use of hormones in pork and poultry. So they don't have a reason for putting that on the label besides that they want you to pay more for their product. And although antibiotics aren't really used in poultry production, they are used some in beef and pork just to keep animals healthy. However, even if the antibiotics are given to your animal, they are never, ever in any of your meat, not even residue, even if the animal has been treated. This is because there are withdrawal times on the sides of antibiotics and anything that we give to our animals that says within blank number of days, I'll say 21, that's a typical withdrawal time, there must not be any meat, milk, or wool taken from this animal for human consumption. So there is a time that they cannot use any of the meat, milk, or wool from these animals. And that's, let's say, 21 days. So you give them the antibiotic. On day 1, you cannot take meat, milk, or wool from that animal for 21 days. And if you're still afraid of antibiotic residue, even after knowing that there's a withdrawal time, the antibiotics that are allowed to be given to animals are regulated by the Veterinary Feed Directive. The Veterinary Feed Directive is a list of approved antibiotics that can be given to animals. These antibiotics are not used in human health. So, if you were afraid of antibiotic resistance, guess what? You're not going to get that from your meat. You're actually going to get it from misusing the antibiotics that your doctor prescribes you, but that's a whole nother conversation. And lastly, there are hormones in everything you eat. I'm sorry if I'm the first person to tell you, but all living things produce hormones. That goes for plants and animals. If you are eating something that was once alive, so a plant or an animal product, or came from something that was alive, like an egg or milk, there are hormones in it. If you look in that picture on the left, it obviously says how much hormones are in people. We know that we make hormones, but look all the way on the left in that column with food containing antibiotics. All the way at the bottom is beef that's not been treated with hormones at 2 nanograms. Beef that has been treated with hormones at 3 nanograms. And then all the way at the top, look at soy flour. And that's way higher than a pregnant woman. And the reason that you're not afraid of eating those things is because there's nothing wrong with eating some hormones. I believe that these hormones actually aren't orally optic. So that means that when you consume them through your oral cavity, the enzymes that are in your saliva and in your stomach break those hormones down. So they actually don't have an effect on your blood serum hormones at all. And that's just something for you to think about when you go to the grocery store. You should not be afraid of hormones or antibiotics in your meat or animal products. And when companies label their products as hormone-free and antibiotic-free, they're really just looking for a little extra money from you. Here are my references, and if you have any questions at all, feel free to reach out to me. Dr. Calloway has my contact information. And if you're someone non-ag listening to this, send me a message on YouTube. Thank you and have a good day.